Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
And now, Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
When I pop the trunk, head to death. Y'all pop the trunk, I pop the hood.
Now act stupid, I'll pop the trunk. Now give me your boom.
He is Jalen Rose.
What up, Doe?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check and center stage on the mic, and we're putting it on wax.
We're putting on wax because we will always give you exclusive content for our podcast listeners because, Jalen Rose, what do we do?
We give the people what they want.
So now that we're on ESPN2 at 2 p.m. instead of 2 a.m., there are certain things that we'd like to talk about that aren't appropriate for the midday afternoon audience where all the executives can watch the show. So what we're going to do is
we're going to talk about R. Kelly now?
We're going to put some of those too hot for TV topics exclusively on the podcast for our podcast listeners because we respect our podcast listeners and we will never leave you without a dope pod to step to, except when Jalen goes on vacation. There is this. I'm not going to go into details on the R. Kelly situation because if you have read the BuzzFeed article, you have seen some of the heinous allegations against R. Kelly. I'm going to go bigger picture on it and speak generally. When you love someone's art or someone's athletic performance and you realize that they might not be a good person, how do you approach that?
Well, usually that goes into my frame of reference if I decide to be a fan of theirs. Mm-hmm. I take that into totality. And so for R. Kelly, once I realized some of the things that he was involved in years ago, I always wondered, as recently walking through LA Live, seeing that he had a concert coming up recently. And I was like, he's still getting paid to do shows?
Oh, yeah. He's getting paid millions to do shows.
This is before I knew about the allegations that you're describing right now that are taking place in Chicago and Atlanta.
And here's the interesting part is I have the mental ability to separate the songs. Like if you put on Ignition, I'm going to love it. If you put on his early work, I'm going to love it. If you put on The Closet, I'm going to love it. However, what happens is when I learn more and more about R. Kelly the person, and Robert the person, it really makes me like the music less. Like, do you enjoy the music less because it comes from someone who might be a very bad person?
Well, I try to not listen to it. So it's not like when we finish this show, I'm going to go back in time and try to play an R. Kelly's greatest hits based on what you're just describing. And you do get the benefit of hindsight. So you look back at some of those titles when Aaliyah was underage and like, oh, age ain't nothing but a number. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
You start to put the puzzle together. Yep. Trapped in a Closet, like that was there's more of them than Fast and Furious movies. And so I was like, okay, he's really into this. And it's truly unfortunate. I'm appalled by the news and the information that continues to disseminate from that story. And no, I will not be supporting any new projects or spending my hard-earned money on any of his music.
And again, we cannot comment on whether these allegations are true or false. We have no idea. There's a BuzzFeed article. I encourage you all to read it. There's also been some denials from some of the people that were in the BuzzFeed article, so we don't know what happened in this, but it does change the way I view R. Kelly's music, much the same way the Derrick Rose case last summer. If you read the details of that case, whether or not he was found guilty, the details of the case that are established facts, test messages, and timelines, they're very concerning. And when I look at Derrick Rose as a die-easy Knicks fan, even though he's not really on the Knicks right now, I hope he's not on the Knicks in the future, it makes me look different at him as an athlete. It's hard for me to buy a Derrick Rose jersey knowing that he did these things. It's hard to separate athletic performance and artistic performance from the person, the source of those performances. Don't you agree?
It is, but it's almost like the music that has become popular now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a fan of the art. It doesn't have to be so intellectual each record for me to appreciate it.
Yes.
But a lot of times, and I saw this in an article years ago, when you look at some of the most successful records in history, usually the hook or the song is something that was dumbed down for public consumption so that everyone could like it.
Yes.
And so I understand that there is a separation there, and I know how passionate you are about the Derrick Rose topic, but in fairness, you can say the exact same thing about multiple entertainers,
of course,
multiple public figures,
Lance Stevenson, someone I've supported
as well.
Someone I've supported, Lance Stevenson. You start looking up some of the things that he's done in the past, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be carrying this flag as high as I do. And if you noticed, I don't carry it that high anymore. But I'm glad you brought up this like mumble rap versus old school rap thing that's happening right now, because I don't see it as I have to pick a side in this war. Like, do I love Jay-Z's new album because of the intellectual, emotional, lyrical content?
Bars!
Yes, he's got bars. But do I also love that silly little Uzi Vert song that's out right now? Yes, I like that too. Reggie, you can push nope as many times as you want. I put that song on in my car and I sing along. I don't really care if you cry. It's a good song. Does it have the depth and the emotion and the intelligence that Jay-Z's songs do? No, but that doesn't mean I can't like them both. I love Game of Thrones. I also love, Vanderpump Rules. That doesn't mean I have to pick a side in this. How do you feel about old school rap and old school heads and mumble rap and new stuff?
Well, I'm a fan of music, and you mentioned it. So whether it's groups or individuals, whether it's different styles of music, I can appreciate it all for what it's worth. And you giving those examples made me think of something.
What?
Of homegrown talent. When you talk about using baseball as an analogy, I can't think of a city that's touching the bases better than Detroit right now.
What?
We got Eminem. We got Royce. We got T Grizzly. We got Big Sean. All I want somebody to do is tell me who's touching the bases mainstream and in the street with bars, selling records, doing shows than my hometown right now.
Jalen,
just tell me who.
I'm not going to validate that request with a response, okay? I'm not going to validate that request with a response. I love T Grizzly. I've listened to T Grizzly's album more than I've listened to Jay-Z's album. But Jalen, come on now. Jalen, come on now.
Tell me who.
I know you, and you know me, and you know that I do not have to name rappers from Atlanta,
current events,
Los Angeles, and New York City. I do not need to name these rappers, both legendary people that carry it and the current up-and-comers. I do not need to name the rappers from these cities that are, quote-unquote, touching the bases the way that Detroit is. I love Detroit. I love Detroit music. I love all the rappers you name from Detroit. But come on, Jalen Rose. Let's be serious. I can tell you've gone too far with this, so we're going to have to get back to regularly scheduled programming.
And I didn't even name the Cash Out Doughboys. It's our turn right now. I'm just saying.
Jalen Rose, I just wish that everybody in the world had the love in their life the way that you love Detroit, Michigan. We're giving the people what they want at ESPN, so obviously we're talking about LeBron James. USA Today has a report that is not surprising, but it is confirming that LeBron James is not happy with the Cleveland Cavaliers offseason. They lost David Griffin, the GM. They lost Trent Redden. They didn't add too much. Jalen, are the rumors true? Is LeBron James as good as gone from the Cleveland Cavaliers at the end of this season?
I think he's good as gone, and he's greasing the skids. I've talked about this since the NBA Finals, and then it became a topic for national consumption. Here's the deal. During last year, when the Cleveland Cavaliers were carrying 14 players on their roster, that was viewed as being cheap. So what did they go out and do after that? When LeBron spoke about it publicly, they signed D. Will. They signed Andrew Bogut. They acquired Channing Frye the prior season. So now all of a sudden they're trying to do what they can to improve their roster. They get to the NBA Finals. However, they weren't the number 1 seed. So they were a team that had some flaws last year. It's just the Boston Celtics wasn't able to take advantage of it. So now you get to the NBA Finals, you lose to the Golden State Warriors, they beat you convincingly, you go into an offseason, you lose your general manager, and not just lose them, a guy that helped bring the first championship to the Cleveland Cavaliers franchise, but also somebody that's had a terrific amount of success in that position at a crucial time where free agents were moving around, potential trades were happening. What's going to happen with Jimmy Butler? What's going to happen with Paul George? What's going to happen with Carmelo Anthony? Now all of a sudden you fire your GM, you don't hire somebody to replace him, and LeBron James is looking around like, you know what? The clock is ticking.
So everyone sort of assumes that he's going to the Los Angeles Lakers. But one thing I know about LeBron James is he makes basketball decisions. We've said on this show for a long time, he left the Miami Heat to go to the Cleveland Cavaliers because he thought the Cleveland Cavaliers gave him a better chance to win a championship. Everyone has him penciled in as going to the Lakers. How can that Lakers team give him a chance to compete with the Warriors as they're constructed?
I respectfully say nobody can truly determine today where LeBron James is going because he's going to join a super team. He's not going to just join a squad. When Paul George came out in Indiana and said he wanted to go to Los Angeles, that had LeBron perked up. Like, yes, draft Alonzo Ball, sign KCP to a 1-year, $18 million deal, also a clutch sport athlete, and then that situation looks a lot more attractive. I want to learn from Magic how to be in ownership. And then all of a sudden, Paul George gets traded from Indiana to OKC. The Lakers don't look as attractive for a player at this point of his career, still the top player in the game, not interested at all on rebuilding. He wants to go to a ready-made situation where it's championship or bust.
I think that's a good point to be made because LeBron James does not want to be around a young core group of players and like mentor. That's not where he is in his career. He's at the peak of his abilities. Another thing is, you mentioned this a second ago, LeBron James doesn't know what team he's going to go to, but we don't think he's going to stay in Cleveland, and he's definitely going to give himself a chance to win a championship. So there is only sort of a handful of teams that he could possibly go to. Could you see him engineering some sort of like Spurs thing, or maybe the Banana Boat Boys going to another franchise like the Knicks? Like, where do you see this playing out? What options does he have at the end of this year if he leaves Cleveland?
The one thing I'm noticing about the landscape of the league is that a player like Kawhi Leonard and Coach Pop, you would think on paper that people would want to go run with them, but from the outside looking in, it may look like it's dressed in overalls and seem like work. So therefore, people aren't exactly enthusiastic about going to a team that's going to limit their minutes, cut into their stats, have a coach that's barking in their face doing a mid-January game on the road, somewhat suppressing your personality. It looks a lot more fun to go play in Houston for Mike D'Antoni, where you're not required to practice.
Or play defense.
And you're going to get video game numbers, and the word defense is never going to be mentioned. And so it would be interesting to see who decides to go play. If somebody decides to go play with the Spurs for LeBron James, I don't think that situation will be his cup of tea based on what I said. So if I am choosing, I choose the latter. Banana Boat Boys reunion.
I love it. So we still have a year of LeBron James on the Cleveland Cavaliers. They did add Jose Calderon, so don't sleep on that. They've got Jose Calderon now. They re-signed Kyle Korver. But there is this report also from USA Today that one of the things that sort of got LeBron a little upset is there was a trade on the table for Jimmy Butler. Now, we can only assume that Kevin Love was involved in that trade to acquire Jimmy Butler. LeBron's upset about that. Did they kind of blow it by not acquiring Butler this offseason?
They didn't blow it. I talked about it, whether it was Butler or Paul George. I know this is not a popular opinion. I'm not giving up Kevin Love in those deals.
Really?
Because they're not giving you in return what you're going to lose up front. Your leading rebounder, your only guy besides LeBron that can get you points on the block. He's become a legitimate stretch four and a productive player other than the NBA Finals that became an all-star caliber player in Cleveland just last season. When you add one of those two players, it makes you more dynamic clearly on the perimeter, but it clearly leaves a hole and or a void up front. So if you can acquire a level of player like that and still keep Love, obviously, and Kyrie, then you do it. Other than that, I don't think they dropped the ball there.
There's one point I want to bring up that's interesting with LeBron James's contract. LeBron James, like Carmelo Anthony, has a no-trade clause. Now, you have no problem as the Cavs putting that in there. Like, oh, we would never want to trade LeBron James. We would never trade LeBron James. But let's imagine this season starts to go sour. You know, the Cavs are in the third place, and LeBron's subtweeting everybody on the team and the franchise itself. And then you look at yourself, and you're the Cavs. You're like, this guy's leaving, and the deadline's coming up. You could see a scenario in which they would want to trade LeBron James to get something back for him instead of just letting him walk. But now with that no trade clause, they're absolutely going to just see him walk if that is the scenario, which is something to be just noted upon, that even LeBron James, you might not want to put a no trade clause in the contract. What do you think about that little wrinkle?
There's a level of billionaire genius there that I'm going to give one Dan Gilbert a lot of credit for. Here's where I'm going. You don't want to hire a president or a GM and have the stain on his hands of trying to trade LeBron James in the final year of his contract when you know he's going to walk. But if you're the guy that owns the team, you can be the guy that initiates those conversations, because you can play basketball, if you're fortunate, for 3 to 5 years. If you're really fortunate, you get a decade in. A guy like LeBron may end up playing for 20 years. But Dan Gilbert can own the team forever.
Now, another player with a no-trade clause is Carmelo Anthony. We seem to be talking about a potential Carmelo Anthony trade every single day. And now we have Knicks president Steve Mills, and he's coming out and he's saying, this is the Knicks that we're going to build around. Kristaps Porzingis, Nita Tequila, Hernan Gomez, and Hardaway Jr. He's got future Hall of Famer Carmelo Anthony on the team right now, yet he is not saying he's going to build around him. He clearly needs to trade Carmelo, but how do you think he gets that done?
I love that you came around finally to my way of thinking. Did David Jacoby just call Carmelo a future Hall of Famer?
Oh, I've been on that train. He's a Hall of Famer. You're talking about Reggie, our producer. Everybody's in the Hall of Fame as far as I'm concerned.
What? All right, one other question. Will the Knicks retire his jersey? Will it be in the rafters at MSG?
Absolutely not, Jalen Rosen. You know this. You say that just to make me upset.
With that being said, for Carmelo Anthony to be moved, bringing in Scott Perry to go with Steve Mills to make these decisions, you got to look at the past of what happened with Phil Jackson. While Carmelo Anthony didn't come to New York and be the lead domino to a team that consistently made the playoffs, one that people thought had promise for he and Amari to play on a championship level, that didn't happen. So therefore, that hurt his value some. Mm-hmm. When the Knicks continue to go lottery bound, that really hurt his value. Overall, trying to get fair market in return. When Phil Jackson started to open his mouth,
that definitely hurt his value.
Really killed his value. Yep. So now if you're a new GM, you're like, I'm not getting pennies on the dollar. You're not giving me some bogus contracts. I'm trying to sell to the fans of New York who have been upset with this team for as long as I can remember recently. You don't just give them up and not get something in return that you're proud of. So do not be surprised. And I know as a Daisy Knicks fan, you may not like this comment. When training camp starts, Carmelo Anthony could legitimately still be a member of the team.
But he will not finish the season as a Knick, because Steve Mills is out here. Steve Mills is out here talking about, hey, we might keep Carmelo. We might keep him the whole year so he can mentor these young players. Carmelo has value to us. Carmelo has value to us. Right, guys? He's clearly just trying to up his value before he ships him off to Houston, which is where I expect him to go.
Ding, ding, ding.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Jalen Rose. Everyone's talking about the rebuilt Rockets, the great moves the Minnesota Timberwolves made. But you and I both agree on this. Who had the best offseason in the NBA?
That would be the Golden State Warriors.
The Golden State Warriors. Now, before we get into the details of what they did this offseason, what we do on this show is we like to set realistic expectations for NBA franchises and their fan bases. So what are realistic expectations? What would they be happy with? Where is the bar set this year for these Golden State Warriors?
And we putting it on wax.
The bar for the Golden State Warriors is set to have the best regular season record, sweep the entire playoffs, including the NBA Finals.
Wait, whoa. So you're saying that they will be upset if they do not sweep the entire playoffs and win the NBA Finals? That's how high the expectations are for these Golden State Warriors?
Let me see. Who had the best regular season record this year?
Warriors come out and play, yay?
How many games did they lose throughout the playoffs?
Warriors came out and played and lost one game throughout the playoffs.
Moving on up like the Jeffersons.
Well,
that's the only thing that can happen when you are writing realistic expectations on the board. Win back-to-back championships and do it in dominating fashion.
Well, let's take a look at exactly what they did this offseason that has Jalen and I thinking that they had the best offseason in the NBA, even though no one is saying that. They did, re-signed Steph Curry to the largest contract in NBA history. So they re-signed a former unanimous MVP. They also re-signed another former MVP in Kevin Durant. And they re-signed Andre Iguodala, Finals MVP. They re-signed key backup Sean Livingston. And they re-signed David West. One of the reasons they were able to re-sign all of these key players and keep their core together is because Kevin Durant took $9.7 million less than his maximum potential salary. What does him taking less in order for them to keep this group together tell you about KD and the Warriors franchise?
A lot of people acknowledge what you just said about him taking $9 million less and make that the headline. But that's not the story. The true story is when the individuals basically that you just described get on an airplane and go recruit him to be a part of the Golden State Warriors, it's already inherent that that's got to happen once he signs initially on the dotted line. That in order to keep me here, Andre Iguodala, while I'm recruiting you, Steph Curry, in order for me to get my max deal, can I eat too? Since I didn't get a bite at the apple as large the first time around.
You see me in all these commercials. I got to be in these commercials.
No doubt. You know that your first deal can't come out and be the max type deal. So that's truly what it started when he joined the squad. Now we can look at the dollars as semantics. Look at it like an investment. Don't just count the money for right now. He's planting seeds to create a harvest. And that's why they were able to have an amazing offseason.
And then check this out. Not only did they keep this core, which everyone's focused on keeping the core together. KD did that, made it happen. They also had some key additions that people are overlooking. I love this. They signed Nick Young and a little low-key benefit, signed Omri Caspi. Now, that doesn't come without a cost. It certainly looks like they're going to enter the season without Ian Clark and Matt Barnes. They're trying to sneak JaVale McGee in there at the minimum. But what do you think about this addition of Nick Young? How do you feel he will fit into this team?
It makes me think back to 2006 or 7 when the Miami Heat won the championship. And there's so many bold things that media members and fans label players. In particular, saying if they're losers or don't have what it takes to be champions, as I see Antoine Walker and Jason Williams win championships as a part of that team.
Yep.
Now you fast forward to the example I want to use. Last year, Matt Barnes, for a lot of people, fell into that category.
Yep.
And we all know JaVale McGee fell into that category. And he happened to play with Nick Young. They were in Washington together.
Oh, that's right.
And they dominated a lot of blooper reels. So I just want to talk about that term and that overtone as it relates to professional athletes. You don't make it to the league without being one of the best. Now, the situation that you're put in, the organization, the coaches, the other players in the locker room, now galvanize you and put you in a position to actually be a winner. So like you, I'm happy for Nick Young because it's going to make everyone look at him different than they looked at the guy that would shoot a three-point shot in Los Angeles and turn and walk away from the crowd before the basketball goes in.
And you make a really good point because you always talk about legacy and how important legacy is and how you'll be remembered. And if you look at a player like JaVale McGee, who was on the fringe of the NBA a year ago today, his legacy was going to be his bloopers, his mental mishaps, his Shaqtin' a Fool MVP, all of that. And you know what he's going to do for the rest of his life when someone brings that up to him? He's going to point to his ring. And somehow just being on a team, whether you are the last guy on the bench or the lead scorer on the team, if you win the championship, you can always point to that forever. And it makes me happy. It warms my heart to see that happen to JaVale McGee, a Drew League veteran, a Drew League stalwart, and another Drew League stalwart. Hopefully it'll happen for Nick Young as well. Now, this is all very positive about the Warriors, and you know me, I like to go negative, right? We've got Klay Thompson. His contract is going to be up after 2019. You look at this core, you've got Draymond Green coming up a year later. It's almost impossible for them to have Durant, Curry, Thompson, Green, all on max deals. Can you see that core four break up when Klay Thompson's contract is up?
It's not almost impossible. When you purchase a team that's basically quadrupled itself in value since you purchased the team, it's all about what the players hope to get accomplished. And when these fiscal conversations come up surrounding Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, I'm going to be the first person to stop them and hit the brakes because these guys are committed to winning.
Yep. What?
That's what it's all about for these two players. I don't think Klay or Draymond are now going to up and say, you know what, I'm going to leave Golden State to try to get more dollars. They have what it takes to continue to stagger deals, to make sure everybody gets paid, make sure everybody feels like they're getting their opportunity to maximize at their point of their career. But I don't think their squad is going to be broken up because of two things: selfishness or because ownership does not want to pay luxury tax dollars.
So here's the thing. I agree with you. Look, I think they will keep this core together for a long time, and I think they will win multiple championships in addition to the two they've already won. But there's a part of me that's kind of annoyed by that. Like, this team is almost too good. When I watch the Warriors, I root against them because I want to see something spectacular, which is them losing the game. Yep. Is there a part of you that feels the same way? Like, is there something annoying about having a team in this league that looks like they will dominate for years and years and not be challenged?
Not at all, because they've earned that through the draft, keeping their core together, all of their players improving. I just saw Klay on the Kids' Choice Award standing on stage with Russell Wilson. He wasn't tripping at all. They have a kinship. They're comfortable in their own skin. And more importantly, they've created a bond that seems to be unbreakable. And how about this? Their moms are even terrific for public consumption.
Oh, I know.
Draymond, Steph, doing interviews. And, of course, KD's on the court at the end of the championship game. We don't want to see those ladies get broken up.
You make a good point. Like, not only are they the best team in the league, they're the most fun team in the league. You see Klay and China dancing around, and then they added Nick Young. They're the best and most fun team in the NBA, and somehow I still find myself rooting against them.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Dylan Rose, you ready?
Let's get it.
Chris Mannix of The Vertical is saying that there's murmurs and rumors amongst executives that if the Boogie Cousins-Anthony Davis experiment starts to go awry in New Orleans, perhaps the Celtics, like vultures, will swoop down and try to steal Anthony Davis. Should the Pelicans be concerned about the upcoming season and the potential of Anthony Davis leaving town?
I respectfully say right track, wrong train.
What do you mean?
Anthony Davis has a multi-year contract to play basketball in New Orleans. Nobody's going to put their head or their neck on the guillotine by trading him, one of the top young players in the game. Now, Boogie Cousins does not have a long-term deal. And on this very program, we speculated last season about the fact that he and Isaiah Thomas played together in Sacramento. And since he hasn't made that long-term commitment to play with the Pelicans, and the Celtics seem to have the necessary assets to get deals like this done, he seems more like the player that's in play as opposed to Anthony Davis.
I do expect the Celtics to fortify the front court somehow by the trade deadline. I'm not sure it's going to come from New Orleans, but I definitely expect them to fortify the front court. But moving on to the most important story of the day. Now, this has been denied, but not just because people said it didn't happen means it didn't happen. There are reports, rumors, pictures that lead people to believe that Taylor Swift may have been packed into a suitcase and then carried out of her Tribeca apartment to avoid paparazzi. I love this idea. I want it to be true. I'm not sure it is true, but soft move or boss move, being carried outside your apartment in a suitcase to avoid the paparazzi.
Soft move.
Oh, come on.
I don't believe that you're endorsing this behavior.
I love it.
Let me
so
tell
much.
you something. The toughest thing it is to do for a public figure is to actually be themselves and comfortable in their own skin publicly as they are
It
private.
cannot be comfortable being packed in a suitcase.
And therefore, to put yourself in a position to have to live like a hermit and put yourself almost demeaningly into a bag to be carried from your apartment, I'd rather walk out of my apartment like the Incredible Hulk or snatch off my shirt like, rah! Before I'm like, please don't talk to me. Oh, no.
And it's just, there's
I
this
just
photo.
don't want to live like that.
Anybody who's tried to carry a person, like just try to carry like a human being that's just limp or whatever, people are so heavy. And there's this photo of these security guards carrying this suitcase out. It means two things. Either Taylor Swift was in the suitcase or she packs way too heavy for trips. One of those two things is true. But moving on, of course, we work at ESPN, so we're legally obligated to talk about Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball was this year's Summer League MVP of the championship Lakers. I'm sorry, the Summer League championship Lakers, who won the championship against the Trailblazers without Lonzo Ball. But here's the interesting part. LeVar Ball said that he does not need to change his jump shot. Do you think that Lonzo Ball, to have staying power in the NBA, will have to change his jump shot?
I don't think that he's necessarily going to have to change it, but he's going to have to improve it. And it's a semantic to say adjust the mechanics, but ultimately, in particular, if he's going to go left and get his jump shot off, it's going to have to go a little bit higher because you're playing against players that are faster, they're more athletic, they have a lot more length, and they're just flat out taller and better than the competition that you faced your entire life. So while that may be a slight change, that adjustment will need to take place if he's going to consistently shoot a high percentage from long range.
We have news about one of your colleagues that's worked with you on the NBA Countdown set. The truth, Paul Pierce has been signed by the Celtics to a one-day contract so he can retire. Now, you are all about legacy. Some tells me that his number will hang in the rafters there in the Garden in Boston. But will there be a statue of Paul Pierce and or the Big Three at any point in time outside the Garden?
We're going to do 5 hours of this program Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern,
PM.
not 2 a.m.
PM Eastern.
And this is the only time I'm going to do research.
You didn't do any research. You asked us to do the research.
You asked me about Paul Pierce and statues. It made me wonder, who has statues as athletes in the Boston area?
They're real tight with the
So
statues
I'm like,
in Boston.
okay, let me just tell you a couple. Bill Russell's in the works. We still waiting on
Wait,
that?
in the works? How long is this statue? They got Shaquille O'Neal out here in the works. What's it take?
Right?
How hard is it to make a
statue?
It's
almost like the Harriet Tubman toys.
Never going to see it.
How long does it take?
Never going to see either of these.
You know what I'm saying? Of course, Red Auerbach has one, and rightfully so.
Bobby Orr has one. His is great.
Flutie?
Wait. Hit the brakes on that. Doug, you know what? Oh, I understand why. You know, the Doug Flutie statue didn't take that much rocks. Bill Russell's tall. It takes a lot of material to make the Bill Russell statue, but Doug Flutie's little, so that was an easy one. That was light work.
And also, Bill Russell's needed a lot more color. Let me continue. Because you rep the East Coast, you're from Massachusetts, you're a diehard, multiple New York and Bostonian fan.
Die easy.
Bobby Orr.
Yep, great statue. See, I always look at the quality of the statue, not just the fact that they have a statue. Bobby Orr has a great statue of his signature moment flying through the air after scoring a goal.
Red Sox teammates? What about Ted Williams? He has a freeway or an expressway.
Okay.
And rightfully so. You hit 400 in a season. It makes sense. And here's a couple. Harry Anginus. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
I do not, and you didn't say the name right. I'm positive.
Cy Young.
Okay, familiar.
I know he has a baseball award.
I've never seen these
statues.
statues. Where are these statues? I've been all around Fenway Park. I don't know where these statues are.
Blame Alex because he did the research.
Yeah, I was about to say, you did too much research
Harry
on this.
Connolly?
Now we're getting to the B-list Boston statues. Now we're getting to like the ducks on the bridge. Look, enough of this.
And I say all of that to say this. If they don't put a statue of Larry Joe Bird somewhere in Boston, what in the world is taking place? Are you kidding me?
I'm going to write a strongly worded email. Moving on. The Rockets are officially for sale. Leslie Alexander bought the team in 1993 for $85 million. Now, that franchise has been estimated to be worth $1.65 billion by Forbes. It will likely sell for more than that, perhaps around $2 billion. Jalen Rose, have you put together a group to buy the Houston Rockets?
Yeah, I was on email with the Fab Five Group, Inc. We're trying to get together and buy that squad.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I know you looked at your phone, you're like, oh, no, he doesn't have it. No, she doesn't have it. No. Yeah, this group isn't going to happen. Next, we have this. Rob Lowe, legendary actor Rob Lowe, been on the silver and the small screen for decades. He's in Santa Barbara just relaxing. He's stand-up paddleboarding, all the rage now. He sees two great white sharks in the water, and he paddleboards up to them just to get close to these magnificent beasts, these great white sharks. He just paddles over to them and kind of follows them around in the water. Question for you, Jalen Rose. Is paddleboarding around great white sharks, as we say, cultural?
100%. With quotations and an exclamation mark. You mean to tell me there was an individual who was actively pursuing sharks in the water?
Gigantic great white sharks, just going towards them, not away from them, on a vehicle that somewhat looks like a seal from below. I'm surprised that Rob Lowe is still with us to this day for multiple reasons, one of which is his desire to chase after great white sharks.
I'm still scared of Jaws.
Jalen Rose, in the world of sports and pop culture, it's not all black and white. It's not all yes or no. There's a lot of gray area. We explore that gray area in a segment that we call 0 to 100. You ready?
Yes, indeed.
0 to 100. How confident should Cleveland feel about LeBron James staying after next season?
50.
Ooh, that's high. Why do you think there's a 50% chance that LeBron could stay?
Because if LeBron decides to leave this time, you think KD tried to join a super team. This is really going to look like that. I mean, like, it'll almost be like leaving Cleveland to go play in Houston with Harden, CP3, and Melo. Yep. And so while he helped usher in a lot of ways what we see players trying to play together and form what has now been deemed super teams when you get on the stage as not 5, not 6, not 7. He doesn't have a horrible situation in Cleveland.
No.
Also, he runs the East. So, worst case scenario with Kyrie and Kevin Love, he's had a rite of passage to win that conference. He decides to go west, he loses that right.
Now, Jalen Rose, it feels like just a couple weekends ago it was July 4th. We're in the middle of summer, but you know what? It's starting to become August, and all of our attention turns to what's really important in the fall, which is fantasy football. 0 to 100 right now. How prepared are you for your fantasy football draft?
0. And on this program, we will not force football topics. People do not care what the backup running back for the Buffalo Bills is doing in July.
But you check back on this show in 3 weeks, and we will be fully studied up, I promise you, because Jalen Rose pays a lot of money to be in his fantasy league. So he studies hard for it. I wish you tried as hard at this show as you do on your fantasy football league. There's just no money at stake in this show. Moving on, though. 0 to 100, how interested were you in Summer League this year?
75%.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Why is that?
A lot of good young prospects in the draft. It's always good to see how they're able to walk across the stage, shake Adam Silver's hand, and then translate that to playing basketball into the summer and showing promise. In particular, look at a player like Lonzo Ball, who won Summer League MVP. There's a lot of noise surrounding his name, but when you look back at it, he actually went out there and balled.
Had 36 points.
And so I appreciate that, and the Lakers won the championship.
Stephon Marbury described playing for Larry Brown on the Knicks and the U.S. team with one simple word: misery. 0 to 100. How much do you agree with Stephon Marbury about playing for Larry Brown?
95%.
Whoa, 95%. Why is that?
I say this respectfully because I'm not taking old shots. We buried the hatchet. It is all love. But what I will say, and anybody that's been around Larry as a coach and as a talent evaluator, I guess this takes place in a lot of relationships or friendships. He really likes the players on the other team more than he likes the players on his own team a lot of times. And so when you have a team like the Pistons that can go on and win the championship with a lot of talent and a lot of volatile personalities, well, you barking at them, they barking back 10 times. Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Chauncey, Rip Hamilton, they like, what? But all of a sudden, when you come into another scenario, when you're trying to build, and then you have a lot of young players that rely on your expertise and on your Hall of Fame status, it can be a little demeaning sometimes what happens to young players in those situations. He thrived in Indiana, obviously, the only coach ever to win a championship on the collegiate and the professional level.
A video posted on the Redskins website, team president Bruce Allen referred to Kirk Cousins 5 times as Kurt Cousins. Sorry, I'm being told 6 times as Kurt Cousins. 0 to 100, how intentional do you think this mistake was?
It wasn't intentional at all, so I would say 8%. And here's the deal. People take things personal sometimes. As long as you have my wiring instructions and my name is spelled right on my check,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You know what?
People mispronounce my name all of the time.
I'm going no big deal on this totally. Like, if your name is Brandon or Brendan, I will not know until I've known you for like 5 years. I just say the end really quickly. Kirk and Kurt are the exact same way. I'd see nothing into this. Shout to Bruce Allen. I would have made the exact same mistake. Thank you so much for doing this show, Jaylene. Next, Michael Vick said Colin Kaepernick should cut his hair to get a job. 0 to 100, how much do you agree with Mike Vick?
0%.
Me too.
I am not rolling with this in any way, shape, or form. This is something, it's called victim blaming, actually. Here's what Michael Vick has to understand. The reason why he was able to overcome his turbulence and people like me was rooting for him, and he ended up back in uniform playing for the Philadelphia Eagles when Andy Reid took a chance on him.
Yep.
It wasn't because he was wearing cornrows or not.
No.
It was because they thought he could be a productive football player, and they felt his production outweighed his baggage. What has happened to Colin Kaepernick, his stance was bigger than just the actual sport. Vic's situation, it rubbed many people obviously the wrong way as it involved animals. But when you start talking about the United States flag, people took that to a presidential height. And so for Colin Kaepernick, it's unfortunate that he's not playing football, and I do think it's solely because of the stance he's taking. Colin Kaepernick looking at Mark Jackson like, why he don't have a job? That's how I feel.
There's reports that teams reached out to Johnny Manziel, and Colin Kaepernick still doesn't have a job. One of the things we do on this show, simple philosophy, is giving the people what they want. Part of giving the people what they want is asking them what they want us to do. We do so via Twitter and on our subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/Jalen and Jacoby, and via voicemail. You can call 985-80-JALEN and leave us a voicemail. First, we go to our Twitter feed. This is from the White Snoop. I'll leave that one. I will not comment on that. Quote, would you want to give Isaiah Thomas a max contract next summer? Jalen, what do you have to say to the White Snoop?
The only two sports we have this conversation are in the NBA and the NFL, whether players are worth their money or not. Because those are the two major sports that have salary caps. With that being said, you should not judge players anymore based on their salary.
Okay.
Base it on their productivity and their ability to leverage what they deserve while they're negotiating.
I'm going to be a little bit more direct.
Isaiah Thomas almost averaged 30 points on a team that was the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. You absolutely give him a maximum deal.
I'm going to answer that question a little more directly. No. Next, from our subreddit, will the new look Pacers make the playoffs in the East, or are they looking to tank?
It's foggy in the East.
It really is.
When you look 5 and below, it's hard to say who's going to emerge because those teams haven't made major moves in the offseason.
The line between tanking and, like, being the 6th seed in the East is very thin. Like, could a Miles Turner-driven team take you to the playoffs? Like, maybe. Again, if you call 985-80-JALEN, you can leave us a voicemail, and we'll play it on the show just like this.
This is Rocky in Phoenix, and I want to know what's going on with Jalen's show, Jalen versus Everybody. That was the best show ESPN had ever came up with. That was a non-sports talk show. When are we going to see you again, Jalen? You're a superstar. You need to be on TV more than you are now. Show us the moneymaker.
Okay. I have a lot to say about that, Rocky, but Jalen, you start.
Thank you for the love. Appreciate the support. I can't take any credit. I work with A-list everybody. Producers, creators, writers, directors, acting coaches, actors that participated, including my partner in crime, David Jacoby. We hope that there will be more episodes of Jalen versus Everybody. The feedback was terrific from the public. Got a lot of support. Stay tuned.
I just can't believe Rocky wants to see you on TV more. Like, you got an hour on TV for Jalen Jacoby. You're on NBA Countdown. You're hosting To Tell the Truth. You're always popping up on Mike and Mike and Sports Center. You are on TV so much, Jalen Rose. You need your own network. And Rocky in Phoenix is like, yeah, we need more Jalen Rose.
But you said that I'm on for an hour with Jalen and Jacoby. Mm-hmm. When did that start?
Oh, come on. We were on for a half an hour last week. We're on for an hour this week. There is just, you know what? I don't like talking about you. We're out of here. That's too much. Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN 2 at 2. We'll be back tomorrow if we don't get fired in the meantime.